I mentioned I'm one of the owners of Capital Beverage and Original Gravity. Work with a lot of different guys growing craft beer. We're also an Anheuser-Busch distributor, but we do a lot of different things, and we're big fans of the things that have been happening with craft beer. We partner directly with Liftbridge. We're their distributor here in the Twin Cities. We're here to talk to you about one of the least exciting things I could think about talking about to a bunch of people that really enjoy craft beer, and that's the Minnesota beer taxes. We have a very serious issue ahead of us here. It's on the table now from the House that they are presenting a 600% increase in beer excise taxes. This will be devastating for our industry. And so what we're here to talk about a lot is what are some of the misconceptions and the realities that really are out there. You won't hear the counterbalance to this a lot, and that's what we're going to walk through a lot of these. So what we're going to start with first is what really, the first misconception is what craft brewers, how they're affected on this. And they're affected by my toy not working. Hang on one second. So the first misconception is that this does not hurt small brewers. And I'm going to let Dan talk to that. I'm going to click through this and try to fix our pointer here as he goes.
Yeah, you just want to advance it and just show all the points there, and I'll just kind of go through it. I think one of the things that I've been asked is there's a little bit of a carve-out in the excise tax here in Minnesota that allows small breweries to get a credit on their excise tax. And so the argument that people say is, hey, Dan, you know this doesn't affect you. And there's a lot of really good arguments, I think, and we're really supportive of people opposing this tax. And so we'll go ahead and do you want to just click and show them all? Okay. So one of the main things is, I guess, we started in 2008, so we're relatively new to the industry. I guess it depends on your perspective. We didn't start last week, but at the same time, we also respect those that have started before us, have kind of paved the way and created the buzz in the industry here. And a lot of those people will be affected. So I'll just name them. Summit and Shells will be drastically affected by this. They're going to see a massive hit to their bottom line, and likely, I mean, I think it could be brewery ending kind of stuff for those guys, and that's pretty serious. And I don't have access to their books, but just thinking about what this kind of tax would do, we're talking about going $4 a barrel to $27 a barrel, and as a brewery, we don't plan on things going. We plan on things anywhere from 3 to 5 years, maybe even 10 years out. And so when somebody slaps 600% on top of you, with literally 2 months' notice, it's really not something you can plan for. So it really shakes the industry up, and it makes you real tentative and real cautious about what you're doing. I think the other thing is that it affects our distributors and our retailers because the price of beer is going to go up. And our beer may not go up, but the profit that they make on other beers is going to definitely shrink, and it's going to be hard for them to take chances on new breweries like Liftbridge and any other new breweries in town, because they're going to go with what's known, and so we're going to see a very drastic shrinkage in the diversity in beers. So if you are somebody who likes new beers, probably none of you guys here like new beers, try new stuff. I do, but. It's gonna affect them. They're gonna be much more cautious because they're gonna have to try and go with things that are sure hits, and also places that have large marketing budgets and are able to support that. So they're not gonna go with little guys who are just starting up. So that's definitely a real concern, and it will affect small guys, no matter what. And I talk about profitability. I hope that someday I might be able to do something really exorbitant. With all of my massive profits at the brewery, like maybe put my kid through college or take a salary, those kind of things. So I certainly hope that we can someday maybe get to that 50,000 barrel limit, and we can continue to grow and make a little money on this thing. So those are a couple of things. I think it shrinks the industry as a whole, and I'm just really concerned about it. And even though it doesn't affect us today, right now, directly, it definitely is going to affect us if you look at it at a macro level, and it's definitely going to affect everybody as a consumer. So that's kind of my perspective as a small brewery who fits in under that credit.
All right, thanks, Dan. The next piece of this equation is that you've been told this funding is directly for alcohol treatment. That's not true. This money goes directly into the general fund, and that's really the end of the equation there. In addition to that, they could have made some choices. Instead the House elected to take the $250,000 to $400,000 increase on Minnesotans making that much, and instead elected for the alcohol tax. So went from a progressive plan to an incredibly regressive plan. The next misconception, this is 7 cents per drink. It's not 7 cents per drink. And let's take a walk through that a little bit. The reality is the minimum increase at the store level will be $3 to $4 per case at a minimum. If you look at this, this is levied at the brewer level, and taxes are a cost of good. So if the price of malt, price of hops go up, any supplier we have has to adjust their profitability, their margins, in order to stay in business, keep their employees employed, and we incur rises in our costs when the beer arrives at our warehouse. Once again, you look at your percentages, you look at the dollars, and you look at your budgets, you look at your employees. You have to balance all these things. If you don't use percentages in this, you'll be out of business in a couple of years. These are all really standard business practices, and retailers do this at the same level. You have to have some lines where you have your business practices and how you go about things, and these are very standard things. These are no secrets. Now there's been some suggestions that, well, it's just 7 cents. The brewers and everybody should just eat the cost. Well, we did some calculations. We said, well, let's just see what that would be. About $6.72 million just for my company. We employ 110, 120 employees, depending on the time of the year. That puts us out of business. There's no bank that's going to say, hey, here's your tax loan. That's what that would be. So when they say, you shouldn't have to pass that on, whether it's a retailer, a brewer, or a distributor, wherever you put that, if someone eats the cost, for us, that's what we're talking about there. At 7 cents, when you add that up. 7 cents can be a very small amount, but when you have a lot of little amounts, they add up to one really big one. Jobs increased after the federal excise tax increase. So in 1991, they doubled the federal excise tax. I was blown away when I read this recently. This came directly off of a sheet from some of the proponents and what they were having as talking points. They said, this happened in 1991 when they doubled it. Here's the reality. It was 60,000. They were only off by 59,000. Okay, I don't know how you do that, but here's the reality. This comes from independent studies from economic study companies. This is not just the brewers getting together and saying, hey, how many jobs did you lose in 1991? It's about 60,000 jobs through the industry. That's significant. And that was only doubling it. This is 600%.
And I just wanted to also add, too, it's kind of interesting that the American Brewers Guild, they're actually, our Minnesota Brewers Association, or the Brewers Association is actually sponsoring a bill to reduce the federal excise tax for brewers to help reduce that burden. And I don't think they're doing that to try and reduce the number of jobs.
Good point. Next point. The Minnesota beer excise tax has not been increased since 1986. That is actually true. But what they will not tell you is the other taxes that are in place that are all percentage taxes after that. They're all percentage taxes, which means as cost of goods go up, as our prices rise, as people drink more craft beer, more high-end beer, where the price is higher, percentages drive the contribution of taxes up. So what are we looking at? On a state level, you've got 6.875 in sales tax and at 2.5% in state alcohol tax. These are on top of the current federal and state excise tax. These come at the cash register. So you see these when you get to the cash register. It comes to an additional nearly 10%. Okay, well that's just the beginning. When you get to some cities, they have the ability to leverage other taxes that once again, you're never going to hear about. These are some of the great complexities of this issue. So let's take a look at Minneapolis. After the state excise tax, you've got the state sales tax and the alcohol tax as we talked about. Then you have these. for a grand total of 16.65% on that pint of beer that came across the table for you tonight. So that's kind of an inconvenient truth for a lot of proponents on this. We're not against paying taxes or paying fair share of taxes, but beer's contribution is significant. Let's look at other cities. So once again, taking it after those initial taxes, Minneapolis 16.65 in addition to the state excise tax.
Do you guys think we're one of the highest or one of the lowest in the nation?
New York City's got a pretty high standard of living, don't they? You pay double. Minneapolis is double New York City. LA, San Francisco, San Diego. Now we're back into our region at least. Well, the cost of living comes in line. Places like Iowa and Wisconsin, Des Moines is 6%, and Madison is 5%. So you can see how these things just don't fit in the puzzle. Good question. We didn't have that data as well, but I need to find that out. Someone asked about Chicago. I don't know off the top of my head. We really went to a few places, but I didn't grab that information. So here's where we stand now. This does not include those local extra taxes I talked about. What this includes is federal, state excise tax, and then state alcohol and state sales tax. I know these are complicated. This is about the most boring subject I could bring to you, but it's serious for our industry. Currently, Minnesota's at $33.12, $33.12 per barrel. They're 80% higher than Wisconsin. They want to increase just that beer excise tax by 600%. So if you're living in a border town, that bridge across to Hudson is looking a lot more appealing. And I'd say your gas tank will thank you for it too. It's a couple extra gallons at least every single time you make that trip. And you can see over here in these states as well, the minimum gap is 20%, that we are higher than those states already. They want to take it to 56.27. It's fairly straightforward. For our company, this is a devastating thing. This is bad for the whole industry. We really wanted to come here to educate people on this, and Rob's got some other things that he's going to come up here to talk about, but I want to thank you for your time. There are postcards in front of you. If you haven't filled them out, please do to help us oppose this, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you can continue to do that, but the governor is the key for us to communicate to keep these things from happening. But thank you for coming tonight, and I'll let Rob take the microphone back.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much. It's not Twisted Jim, it's Twisted Trace, Buffalo Trace barrels. No, but thank you guys for that. We're going to now open up the panel, and we're going to talk about many different beer laws, further conversations on the excise tax increase as well too. But let me just go ahead and get right into some introductions here in no particular order. Pete Rafikas, Town Hall Brewery, come up. Welcome him, please. Joe Falkowski, J.J. Taylor, Distributing Company. Come on up, brother. Jason Alvey, owner of the Four Firkins. Come on up, brother. Mark Joseph, beer buyer over at the Ale Jail in St. Paul. Come on up, brother. And then, Paul, I believe you're still going to stay up here and moderate for, or represent Original Gravity. And your moderator, last but not least, is Mr. Andrew Schmidt of the Minnesota Beer Activists. Come on up, brother.
Thanks, Rob. I just kind of want to reiterate, I'm Andy from the Minnesota Beer Activists. We're Minnesota's consumer organization. We try to keep people up to speed with stuff that's going on in Minnesota in regards to beer, especially new breweries, new beer stuff going on, and a particular focus on legislation. At Minnesota Beer Activists, we kind of feel Minnesota is behind the curve in a lot of things where it comes to enjoying craft beer. And so what we try to do is create a good vehicle and an engaged craft beer loving society. So what we're going to do is kind of get into some of the different laws and discuss the different attributes of the regulations that are laid down in Minnesota. So everybody you see up in the panel before you comes from a different perspective of the industry. We've got brewers, we've got wholesalers, we've got retailers, and we're going to just kind of go down the line and give a brief introduction as to who they are and the role they play in the three-tier system.
My name's Jason Alvey. I own a retail specialty beer store. I am Tier 3. I'm the retailer. I sell you beer.
As you heard before, I'm Paul Morrissey. I'm one of the owners of Capital Beverage Sales, Original Gravity. We're a beer distributor. We do a lot of the feet on the street work to partner up with our breweries to help them keep growing.
Dan Schwartz from Liftbridge, so we're a brewery out of Stillwater.
I'm Joe Falkowski. I work for J.J. Taylor, Minnesota. We do beer distribution and have fun.
I'm Pete Rafakis. I'm the founder of Town Hall Brewery. I am an exemption to the three-tier system. I'm both a retailer and a brewery.
I'm Mark Joseph. I'm the beer buyer of the Ale Jail. I basically manage everything there. So.
Does Paul know that?
All right, so we'll go to the line and kind of give everybody equal time. There'll be some stuff discussed tonight that are going to have very different perspectives and stuff people will probably all agree on wholeheartedly. So let's get right into it. Which Minnesota state law or regulation do you find most helpful and most harmful for your particular enterprise?
That's actually a pretty good question. Most harmful and most helpful? I don't even know where to start with this. I would say most harmful would be the excise tax, obviously, because this is something that directly affects not just the breweries, the distributors, the retailers, and the consumers, because it starts at the top and it boils all the way down. I mean, it's going to hit the breweries, which hits the distributors. They're going to pass it on to the retailers. Then obviously the retailers have to pass it on to the consumers, even though the legislature does not, they're not trying to really put it that way. They don't want to say it's going to hurt the consumers, or if they're saying it's going to, it's only going to be 7 cents. But really, it's going to boil down to everything. So that's probably the most harmful potential thing that could be happening right now. Most helpful law, I guess, is just the fact that we can be open. I don't know, the fact that we're able to sell beer, which is awesome. Yeah, I don't know.
I think I'll just say, because it's in the forefront, the excise tax is probably the most important thing we're talking about today. I think that the laws are really complex and they affect each one of us significantly different. Brew pubs aren't allowed to distribute beer. You're talking to people who distribute thousands of barrels of beer here, and sorry, Dan, I'm not sure what your capacity and how much you sell right now, but to put it in perspective, Summit is a brewery that a lot of people know here in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and I think this is the first year that they passed over 100,000 barrels. Bud and Miller are significantly more than that, in the millions. And Minneapolis Town Hall Brewery brewed 1,500 barrels of beer a year. I believe our brewers are as good as any brewer in the United States, and they deserve the possibility of brewing as much beer as people demand buying.
Well, right now, I would definitely, I hate to be that guy, but, the excise tax thing is definitely, probably the forefront of what affects us the most. And, by our estimates, we could lose up to 20% of our sales force just to compensate for the losses. And being somebody that works there, I don't want to see any of my coworkers, have to go find new jobs, and especially this guy. I really don't want to go look for a new job, so call your governor.
Yeah, so I'm going to stay positive. I think the one thing that as a production brewery, and that's kind of one of the differentiations, as Pete said, is a brew pub and we're a packaging brewery. Recently, there was the tap room or pint law that passed. So we were one of the first breweries to take advantage of that, and I think it's been really, really cool and exciting to have customers come in, see the brewery, support us by buying a pint or two, and just kind of experiencing things there. So that's That's probably the most exciting thing and the most beneficial thing that's happened for us recently.
I hate to keep repeating this, but the excise tax is absolutely the worst. I haven't heard that before. Okay, good. But no, actually, it's the worst because it comes up all the time. You might not remember, but this came up 3-4 years ago when they wanted to double it. This time they went for 600%. It's going to happen again. We're an easy target, and we constantly have to be involved in politics in order to survive as an industry. We have to continue to communicate what's great about beer and why you shouldn't come after beer every time you need something and you need some funding. So that's definitely the worst.
You didn't tell us there's going to be different questions this time, mate. We're all ready to go. We're like, yeah, I know how to answer this one this time. Different questions. So potential worst law is the excise tax. Existing most frustrating law is Sunday sales restrictions. A positive spin on something that not a lot of people think about, the three-tier system. The fact that we have to go through a distributor ultimately means that we end up having access to a lot of craft beers from around the country that we wouldn't have if we didn't have this distribution network around the country like it is. So, it's not all bad.
I think Alvy brings up a good point. We're left with this three-tier system that was kind of formed after Prohibition, and the result is the separation of the three tiers. If we were still pre-Prohibition days, there would be serious barriers to retailers like Alvy being able to get any sort of good beer, be it outside of town or outside of the region. Distributors do a lot of good in the industry by taking in brands that are outside of your locale and putting them on their truck and bringing them to local retail stores. So, the three-tier system isn't all bad. It serves its purpose in creating all three different interests in the industry. So sometimes that's overlooked. Let's move on to the next question here. And we kind of touched on it a little bit, but could someone on the panel explain the Minnesota taproom law? What does it and does it not allow? Can a taproom sell beer 7 days a week? And I think we'll throw this over to Dan.
Okay, yeah. In the last class, I left out a key element, so I'm going to start with that one before I forget. So taproom law allows breweries to sell their own beer on sale. And you have to be under a certain barrelage limit, which is 200,000, I think is it, right? Or is it 250? 200,000 barrels. So we're hoping to get there next year. Just kidding. We're a long ways from that. So you can sell your own beer on sale, and you also have to abide by local on-sale municipal liquor laws. So, for example, we're in Stillwater, and Stillwater requires you to sell food with any liquor sales on Sunday. We do not offer any food, so we do not sell on Sunday. What else did I miss? Oh, we cannot sell beer, other people's beer. We cannot sell wine, and we cannot sell any liquor. So I think that pretty much covers it. I think it's kind of cool. It's pretty exciting, and we've been fortunate to be a part of it. And Stillwater passed a taproom law, which allowed us to sell that. One of the interesting things is when we changed that city ordinance, there was still a law in the books that allowed pharmacies to sell liquor, because apparently that was a Prohibition era law that pharmacies could sell liquor for medicinal use only. They pulled that out of the law.
It's too bad they pulled that out. Sometimes Daddy needs his medicine. So consumers seem to drive not only craft beer fads, but also changes to the law. Part of this reason the taproom law was passed was undoubtedly due to Surly's ability to mobilize their fan base. How is grassroots organizing going now in regards to changing antiquated laws, and what can be done to improve those efforts?
So the toughest challenge we have in beer-related issues like this is that there's often much bigger issues that people are considering. So it's hard for them to get motivated and actually take the time to call about Sunday sales or excise tax. One of the senators I was working with recently said to me regarding Sunday sales, he said, Alva, you know what? I hear from the MLBA, the lobbying group, and the opposing liquor stores every single day, and we never hear from the people who want this. So if you really want something to change, you really got to take that next step and make the call.
Yeah, I'm going to repeat a little bit of that. It is, as much as it feels like you're doing nothing, calling makes a difference. For us right now, the biggest, the most important piece to the excise tax is Governor Dayton. And we've told everybody, please call the office, call the number. It does make a difference. Every one of those postcards makes a difference. The other piece is, if there's something that you're looking to change, you need to understand your side and the other side, and additionally, why it is the way it is. I'm not telling you I agree or disagree with anything in particular, but prohibition was a significant thing to this country. At the same time, thank you, the current system we have that doesn't have tied house as compared to things in Europe, if you've ever been over there, most bars are owned or contracted to have only specific products on tap. And due to that, and due to the differences here in the US and some other things, you'll now see that Europe envies the choice and the things that we have available to us over here. I'm certain there's areas where that's different, but I'm just speaking in general terms of things that Tied House can do to liquor stores and to bars. So it's a really interesting thing, and the resource for that, to see the real history of beer industry, is Ken Burns' documentary called Prohibition. It's about 6 hours long, but it's actually very interesting. So that would be a long-winded answer that I have.
Well, it was in working in some of the lobbying efforts between the taproom bill and raising the growler limit, talking to legislators. Many legislators said, you know, if I get 10 calls on a particular issue, I know it's a really hot issue, and that's enough for me to really stand up and take notice. So if you think that your phone call and your email does not matter, it absolutely does. So I'd encourage everybody who wants to oppose the excise tax to make a phone call tonight to Governor Dayton or tomorrow morning on your way into work. Don't text and drive, it's illegal. But also, as far as grassroots goes, follow your local brewery, wholesaler, and local liquor store and bar. And even from the consumer side, I mentioned it before, but I think the Minnesota Beer Activist has been really a nice voice for the consumer, and was maybe something that was missing here in the state, because, you know, people should listen to us too. We drink beer. So there you go.
I would say, you know, one of the biggest things, be respectful when you call. You know, don't sit and swear at your representative and say this is bullshit and you're an asshole, this and that. I would, you know, present the facts. We've discussed earlier that we can swear up here, right? Okay, good.
No one said an
No.
Oppenheimer yet.
No one, yeah, I'm not gonna, yeah. I might drop the mic though. But yeah, in all seriousness, get your facts straight. Look at it from both sides, like Paul said. Present it, you know, be respectful, and don't be organized. And when you're presenting what you're going to talk to them about, rather than just coming unglued and screaming at people and saying this is crazy, this is dumb. So.
To be brief, I think the grassroots movement with the taproom bill was phenomenal, and I think it's going to take a grassroots movement for any type of change in this industry. I think there's a lot of politics involved, and until people get involved on the customer level, nothing's going to change. And with that, it's going to take social media and everything that kind of the common people have to say to get people involved in politics. No one really wants to get shot down when they go to the Capitol, but that's what happens. And a lot of it's, again, politics. It's both sides of the aisle. It's people saying, I don't know who the hell you are, and so I don't know whether to trust you. And it's got the old boys network that gets up there and spews their dialogue, and it shoots things down. So grassroots is needed. Social media is an asset to push you guys to contact your legislators to make change.
Yeah, kind of going along with what Joe said about how educated everyone needs to be when it comes to putting up your arguments. As long as everyone can be as educated with your arguments going against something or for something as educated you are when it comes to your knowledge for beer, like when you go shop for beer, everyone knows what you're talking about. As long as you're as passionate with your argument and you can stand behind it and you just know what you're talking about and you're just not shooting shit out into the galaxy, it goes a long way. So, yeah. I'm the last one, so I'm kind of screwed.
No, galaxy shit. We got it. It's good. So, getting back into, we'll throw a plug out there for the website we set up over at the Minnesota Beer Activists. If you want some resources where you can go and take a look at the proposed excise tax, is obviously a big issue here tonight. But if you go to stopmndrinktax.org, we've set up a great website where we have contact information for everybody that's sitting on the deciding conference committee and for the governor, and also some easy, quick reference facts and point of view stuff. If you guys are so inclined to go address the issue, that's a good resource for you guys. Let's get back a little into the discussion of the future of beer laws in Minnesota. What kind of problems, issues, laws do you guys see being tackled in the semi-near future in Minnesota? Stuff that maybe is on the horizon that isn't necessarily a pressing issue yet, but could certainly well be on its way.
Well, for starters, the whole Save the Growler movement that's happening right now, I think, is also important in addition to the excise tax. I mean, I know a lot of small breweries are really trying to spearhead as far as, like, was it, once you brew over, is it 2,500 barrels, you're not allowed to sell growlers anymore? 25,000 barrels, you're not allowed to sell growlers. Yeah. So, once you reach over 3,500 barrels, you're not allowed to sell growlers anymore. I believe that's limited to, within that 3,500 barrels, is it 500 barrels that you're only allowed to sell in growler form? That is correct. So I think that's really important, the fact that Minnesota beer culture is growing and we have so many breweries that are actually starting to blow up. Take a look at Indeed. Indeed didn't even bother selling growlers right away. Indeed went straight to 750s, even though that still falls under the growler law. But they're already at the point as to where they're not going to be able to sell 750s out of their tap room anymore. I mean, you know, you guys hopefully one day will try and get at that point, and you want to be able to still continue to sell growlers. And I think that's an important law that people need to realize, the fact that Anheuser-Busch isn't going to come in here and set up a brew pub and try and sell growlers out of their brew pub. But we need to keep local breweries producing good beer that we can still buy at the tap room and take home with us. And, yeah.
I think that a lot of the breweries are concerned. We've always been concerned on what we can't do. And I know I always have been concerned on what we can't do. So we've pushed to do what we can't do. And for me as a brew pub owner, this might go long. I apologize if you can. Me as a brew pub owner, we always wanted to distribute our beer because we thought there was demand for that beer. There's no ability for us to do that. So a lot of what we're told by the other factions that go and lobby at the Capitol is work within the law. Find a way to do what you can and work within the law. I opened the brewery across the street from here in 1997. And I can give you an example of a brewery in Colorado. I was talking with Joe here outside between sessions. They opened in 1997. It's called Oscar Blues. They're not in our market. They make a good beer, first craft brew in a can, despite Surly. And I don't mean that as a dig on Surly, but Dale's Pale Ale was marketed as the first craft brew in a can. They started the same year we did. They started canning their beer a year after they opened their brew pub. and started distributing it. 2 years later, they brewed 32,000 barrels of beer. They were in 14 states. Then they went and opened a brewery 5 miles down the road, and now they're about to brew 100,000 barrels of beer. They're as big as Summit Brewing Company. We brew 1,600 barrels of beer a year. And you can go down our law, and you can go to 5 states. Well, I don't know how many states border Minnesota, but let's say 5 states in the Big Ten network. And what we're asking to do is legal in all those 5 states. So I'll stop there. I think that right now breweries are limited in Minnesota. I think that certain factions of the brewery industry are content with having that be the case. I think they don't want to lose what they have, and unfortunately that's hurting the industry. And it's definitely hurting brew pubs, and it's hurting the consumers because they're not allowed to buy our beer, among others.
Well, I don't know how to follow that. I honestly can't see the future, so I don't exactly know what people are looking to change and what they want to change. I just honestly hope to continue to do what I do and sell beer, and hope new beers come into the state, and hope that local breweries continue to prosper and grow the whole beer scene in Minnesota, and be attractive and to outside breweries too, as well as aspiring home brewers or whoever that wants to give up their day job as an accountant and start selling beer. So
I guess I don't know what's coming up. I mean, I think right now it's probably more of a defensive game, trying to avoid what people see that, hey, the craft brewing industry is growing at a huge rate, so let's try to grab some of that tax revenue or whatever. I don't know. But on the Save the Growler thing, it sounds like the Senate and the House have raised the cap on growlers to 20,000 barrels. So it's now on Governor Dayton's desk, and he can sign that, so hopefully we'll see that pass. I certainly would like to see breweries be able to sell more beer on site. And when I say brewers, I mean breweries and brew pubs. I mean, I think that would be great. And I think no matter what, if we see breweries grow here in the state, it's a good thing for everybody. I mean, it's good for the consumers, it's good for jobs, it's good for the wholesalers and retailers. And the more business we can do locally, the better. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, truthfully, that's a tough question. I've had my head so buried in the sand on excise tax, I haven't given a thought to the future. It is very much, it's defensive all the time for our industry, so it's really more a matter of continuing to make sure we don't get targeted the way we do, or when we do, we can defend ourselves. That'd be the biggest thing. So I was thinking next year that I'd tackle a 600% decrease in the beer excise tax. I think it sounds like a good idea, so maybe we can start that.
I'm going to be real brief here. 10 years into the future, liquor stores will be open on Sundays.
All right, there it is. So let's talk about beer on Sunday and give another wide and varied different perspective from each tier of the industry and see where they fall on Sunday sales.
Thanks, Andrew. So basically, 99% of the liquor stores here in Minnesota oppose Sunday sales. And one of their major fears, or one of the things they'll tell you all the time, is that it will lead to grocery stores putting beer and wine in the aisle. Well, guess what? Grocery stores already have liquor stores. They're just attached with separate entrances. They have over 100 attached liquor stores in the state of Minnesota right now. And the state law says that any company that owns a liquor store can only have one per city. I can only have one for Firkins in St. Louis Park, and Rainbow Foods can only have one attached liquor store in St. Louis Park. They would have to change that law in order to get beer and wine in the aisle. And then even if they were able to do that, I mean, they came down to the capital last year and tried to get multiple licenses per city, and they were laughed out of the capital. I was there, I witnessed it. Even if in some magical will of that was able to be repealed, then you've still got the problem that off-sale liquor licenses are actually handed out by the cities. The cities figure out how many off-sale liquor stores that population can support, and they decide, okay, here's a finite amount of liquor licenses. To suggest that cities would just roll over and magically hand out as many liquor licenses as there were grocery stores is simply ridiculous. I would put it to you that that argument is not realistic, even slightly.
This is going to be really boring and short. Wholesalers are neutral on this issue.
Well, I guess I have two perspectives. One is a consumer who lives in a border town. I can go to Hudson. It's literally 5 minutes. So, and it's interesting. I've talked to a couple of liquor store owners. I know people on both sides that say we want it and we don't. So I'm not the one that really, I guess, weighs in on it. But as a brewery who sells growlers in a kind of a tourist town a little bit, I think it'd be really interesting to have the opportunity to sell growlers on Sundays. So from that perspective alone, I guess I would like to be able to have that option and be able to see if that's a viable revenue stream for us.
Sorry to be boring, but to echo Paul, we have retailers that support it and retailers that are against it, and essentially it doesn't really affect us, so we're neutral. Sorry, it's boring, but
I'm just going to say that I am for Sunday sales. I think people that have the expenses to be open the entire month, they should be able to sell beer every day they want to sell beer. I think that I think there's people that want to buy it on Sunday. Let them sell it on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean the whole grocery store argument is definitely one side of it. A big side of it from the MLBA perspective is the fact that it's spreading 6 days of sales over 7. I mean, with the whole thing, it's like, I'd love to go buy beer on a Sunday. I'd also love to go buy a car on a Sunday, but that's not as pressing of an issue as buying beer on a Sunday. But yeah, I would love to buy a car on a Sunday. Yeah, it's one of my only days off. Anyways, it's been proven in a couple states already with the fact that a year ago in May, Connecticut legalized Sunday sales. And it's been proven already that with the package stores that it literally did just that. It spread 6 days of sales over 7, which really upset a lot of these owners. They proved the fact that it just increased labor because they had to staff for an extra day. And it took the busiest day of the week, which is Saturdays, because people in Minnesota are used to the fact you can't buy beer on Sunday. So what do? You stock up. And so that makes the fact that we have our biggest day of the week on Saturdays. And it just spreads it out over 2 days, and it's been proven there. And it also was proven in Colorado, the fact that they legalized Sunday sales a couple years ago. And the only people that had benefited in Colorado, or actually, excuse me, the only people that benefited in Connecticut was grocery stores, because they have sales, beer sales in grocery stores, and it upped theirs because people already go grocery shopping on Sundays. It upped the beer sales, it downed beer sales in package stores. And right now in Colorado, with the fact that you couldn't buy real full beer in grocery stores are trying to fight the fact that their 3-2 sales went in the tank. They can't sell 3-2 beer on Sundays anymore because no one wants to buy it when you go down the street and buy real beer. So what the MLBA is worried about is the fact that people are going to grocery stores are going to push harder and harder to get real beer, wine in the grocery stores, and it's going to screw over the small businesses. In addition to that, say if grocery store sales do become legal in Minnesota, you're going to be able to go to Target and buy beer. You're going to be able to go to Whole Foods and buy beer. You're going to be able to go to Rainbow. And these places all are going to be able to buy in such large volume that's going to undercut what we are able to buy beer at. They're going to buy so much that they're going to be able to sell it cheaper than we can sell it at. So why would you come to our store when you can go to Lund's or Byerly's down the street from a craft beer store, go through their craft beer aisle, buy it at $2 cheaper a 6-pack than you can anywhere else, and then get your groceries at the same time. So that's just one of the issues that the MLBA had with Sunday sales, which is why it did not pass.
So let's get to an issue that's near and dear to my heart, consumers. What do you guys love most about consumers, and what consumer behaviors kind of chap your hide a little bit? When consumers are out hanging at breweries or at stores or out and about, what do you guys like about consumers, and what consumer behavior drives you guys nuts?
Well, I mean, what I love is the fact that we have a very educated customer base, which is fantastic. The people come in and ask questions. I'm sorry, I missed the beginning part of the question. What do you love about consumers? Oh, love. We have a very educated customer base. People come in, they know what they're talking about. They want to discuss beer, especially when you work with customers on a very frequent basis. You learn their palates. You learn to know what they like. You recommend beers. They come back and say, I loved it or I hated it, and you kind of hone in on what they're really into, and you can start to recommend beers to them, and they love that, and they keep coming back to you. I guess what I hate, what we already kind of discussed in the earlier session, is the fact that, limited beer releases, people think that we have the ability to buy as much of these beer releases as we want. That's not the case. It's determined for us. Distributors, you can attribute to this. You tell us how much we can buy. Yeah, so the fact that, I get 12 bottles of something and I get 300 phone calls in a week for this beer, and I have 12 bottles of it to sell. How the hell do I sell that? Do I do a raffle? Do I put it out at random times? Do I announce it? Do I not announce it? What do I put in the cellar? What the hell do I do? I end up having more angry customers than I do have happy customers, which is a big problem for me. I mean, I want to appease my entire customer base. I work hard day and night to try and make everybody happy, but I can't do it, and that's what sucks, is I cannot make everybody happy. I wish I could, but the big point of this whole thing is that if you support the mainline brands, if you buy more, 312 Honkers Ale, Goose Island IPA, they'll send us more Bourbon County Stout. If you buy more Satin Solstice, Glacial Trail IPA, Happy Huron Pale from Central Waters, we'll get more Peruvian Morning, we'll get more Bourbon Barrel barley wine. Just keep supporting mainline brands, which people don't understand, and they will send us more beer. So that's one of the problems that I have.
I think that what I like about good customers is that they're educated about good beer. And I think, Rob Shellman, you've done a hell of a job in accumulating this crew. And I think that's what this class is all about, is to educate. We put the first beer, I don't know what he's serving of ours again, but the first one is a barrel-aged beer. It's not for the tame at heart. It is something that, I thought it was going to be a bunch of beer geeks here. I hope you all enjoy it. But it's something that we're proud of, and it needs to be, you need to be educated toward that beer. It's not a light lager, and that's what we want all our customers to strive to get the best. And so thank you, Rob.
I can't echo Mark more. Honestly, supporting the mainline brands is always a bonus. The more you buy, Farm Girl, or the more you buy Mirror Pond Pale Ale or Fat Tire or something like that, those are the brands that built the breweries. Those are the brands that allow for the brewer to buy barrels to age their Imperial Stout in or do all that stuff. And it's really hard as a distributor, and I know everybody kind of hates on us, and it's actually, it's a job that I don't think anybody would ever wish upon their worst enemy. But yeah, exactly. The retailer feels the brunt of the consumer, and the retailer screams at us. When a brewery goes, hey, by the way, we're going to send you 60 cases of Abyss, and you're like, great. I have 3,000 retailers. Each one of them wants 20 cases. What do you do? I mean, I'm open for suggestions. So afterwards, if you have a better way to do it, please come tell me. It might work. But it's very hard to come to a retailer and be like, hey, you get one case, 12 bottles. And I know you have like 5 people that work there, so there's 5 bottles, and then 7 bottles. So they don't even get any. So actually, they get screwed the most because the employees don't even get to buy any. And please don't follow delivery trucks. That's just really weird. it happens. Yeah, exactly. Surly, I know that Surly has called the cops on people following their delivery trucks, because it's not. I mean, imagine if everywhere you're going, there's like 3 cars following you. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? I mean, it's not a comforting thing. You're just trying to do your job and all that. But beer hoarding. That kind of brings us to another thing. Beer hoarding. Beer hoarding is bogus. Please, 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 buy your allotment. If it's one bottle per customer or 2 bottles per customer, please buy that. If you need to go to another store that's down the road and buy one too. But it's kind of weird, and I can't necessarily totally speak for the retailers, but I'm sure it's really weird for a retailer that's never seen your face before in their store ever, but you're driving 45 minutes to buy 1 bottle of something, and then you're going home and putting it on eBay or Craigslist or something like that. And that's not what the brewery intended. The brewery intended it to be shared. Me personally, I buy, if I can get 2, I get 2. I drink 1 and then I sell her 1, and that's my mentality, is I want to hang on to 1, but it's out there for everybody to share and to drink and enjoy, and that's what the whole beauty of beer is about sitting down in the camaraderie and drinking it, and so please don't be an asshole.
I guess my 2 things are surrounding local beer. So one is the best thing that I really like about people is their support of local beer. I think we have a great beer community here, and there's a lot of love for the local breweries, which is great. And on the other side of the sword, I guess, is I want to make sure too that people, when it's a beer that you don't like, you don't just totally trash somebody, because I think people are making great beer, but it might not be your thing. Maybe you're really into IPAs right now, or maybe you're super into porters, and that sour is not your thing. So, I think it's important to consider the perspective of the brewer and the brewery, and think about where they're coming from. And my line on things is, if it's not quite my thing, I just say, hey, it's not a style I'm into right now. And clean beer and good beer is still something to be appreciated. So be kind and support your breweries, your local breweries. So that's it.
This is a little bit of a repeat. The only thing I'll add on is it's been a lot of fun to do all these things and have all these beers, but if you ever are aggravated with a retailer, distributor, or brewer, the complexities of this business have absolutely changed in a small amount of time. And for every level, it's gotten harder and harder to manage. And so it's just amazing, because you want beer to be fresh, and at the same time, you don't want to have too much of it sitting so it goes old. And it's amazing. Now, doing that with 1 beer, pretty easy. When you're doing it with thousands of SKUs, it gets a lot harder. So it's just a lot of those things that become much more difficult to manage. We've had to change a lot of our business model, not business models, but business practices and how we handle things. And it's a pretty interesting process. We love it, but at the same time, it's always an uphill battle.
So I've thought of a way that you guys can help the industry as a whole. You can help educate your peers, your friends. That friend who gets on Facebook, and this is I'm following on from Dan's comment, and he says, yeah, I was at XYC Brewery the other night. I had such and such a beer, and it was crap. He says it on Facebook. Here's what you say to that friend of yours. You say, oh, was the beer critically flawed, or were you simply not in the mood for it? You'd be surprised how many people don't understand the difference. They don't get the distinction. And it's very important. If you're going to say that about a beer, then it better be critically flawed. So yeah, help us out.
So I'm going to throw on my 2 cents on what these guys had to say. One of the things I really love as a consumer is other consumers. I can't tell you the number of people that I've sat down with at a table at a bar who I don't know, but they're a part of the craft beer community. They're somebody who enjoys good beer and good conversation, and I can guarantee just about anybody you would sit next to in here tonight, you would have a good time with, and you would enjoy a couple of beers together. One of the things I don't appreciate as a consumer is I think sometimes contract brewers get a bit of a shaft. There's a lot of great beer that's made on contract or on nomad or wandering brewers or alternating proprietorships. There's a lot of great beer that's made, but because they didn't have the $500,000 to throw into their own equipment, people don't consider them local and don't consider the beer, as good as it could be. So from my perspective, I think sometimes contract brewers get sold a little bit short. Let's get into some of the beer geek stuff. We kind of saw the explosion of IPAs and have kind of moved into some of the sour stuff. What do you guys see as we're looking at the future, the next beer craze? What's the consumer going to want? Is it going to be session beer? Is it going to be more stuff in barrels, as big as you can make it? What's coming down the pike?
Yeah, I see a lot more session beers, but really complex and interesting session beers. And barrels, we're already seeing this trend, but they're going to be specific barrels. They're going to be able to tell you what barrel that was. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot of that.
I think I'm going to be repeating a lot, but sours still have a long way to go as far as potential. IPAs still have a long way to go as far as potential, and session beers, absolutely. It's tough sometimes you want to have 4 beers, but if you have 4 7% beers, you might be taking a ride home in the back of a squad car, and that's really not a good way to enjoy craft beer. So it's nice to have a good balance of that.
For us, I guess I like the balanced, a little bit lighter beers on alcohol, but at the same time, we have taken a concerted effort towards a barrel program. So there's a lot of stuff that we have sitting in the cooler that's been there for a year plus, and will eventually unleash, which is really exciting. It's super hard not to go there and drink it all. I know Joe's tried. But no, I think wood and barrel aged stuff is really, really fun and exciting. I think hops are exciting too, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I like that balanced approach, and I'm really a big fan of barrels. So.
Me personally, I'm kind of to echo. Session beers are the greatest thing ever right now, and I don't. Full disclosure, I don't sell it, but I think Founders All Day IPA is one of the best beers I've had in a long time. I think that beer is fantastic. I love. I don't sell it. I actually buy it. My boss left, so. I'm a big no. I don't know what you're talking about. Turn the camera off. I really believe that we've kind of come full circle, and it's like, I love 7.5% just punch you in the mouth IPAs. I'm a diehard hop fan, but I'll drink one of those, and then I'd like to sit and enjoy, 3 beers after that. These 4.5% beers are fantastic. The other thing I really like seeing is the style experimentation. Black IPAs, obviously that's kind of like passe now. It's been around for a year or two, and everybody's like, oh, what's the new thing? What's the new thing? White IPAs are fantastic. I like that cross between, wheat and, hoppy. I just think that the experimentation is, I'm really excited to see what brewers are going to come up with in the near future. So, a white. Do you know? Albie said white stout. White stout. There's a white. I know personally of a brewery that I represent that's coming out with a white stout. So I haven't. You were joking. I know that, and we actually. I haven't gotten samples yet, but we'll make sure to get you some. But a white stout. I'm not writing it off yet. I'm gonna try it and and find out if it's critically flawed.
I think the market's really interesting in that there's a lot of people that have just come into the market in terms of craft beer and are trying to stomach an IPA or to even stomach a bitter or a pale ale. So for a market that's got a lot of new craft beer drinkers, the session beers are perfect. And to get them hooked on craft beer with the session beers, and then to move them along in style. For beer geeks, and I think I'd put myself in that category. I'm starting to move towards sours, so I think sours are growing a lot. And when you talk within the brewing industry, that's what they're talking about, sours. Bourbon barrel beers or barrel aged beers. We've been doing. Town Hall's been doing them for 12 years, and I think our brewer is phenomenal at it. And I think that it's going to continue to grow. And I think the breweries that are coming on are going to experiment with that. And are going to make them even better, and it's going to push our brewers and everyone else to do better. But in a market like ours, with a wide range of, you have to be interested in beer to be in this room. Just on the other side of that wall, you got a bunch of people that are experimenting with craft beer, and Lord knows what they're drinking. I mean, the Sooner Kolsch is a phenomenal beer. We were talking about that earlier, and it's in our market. It is a totally different beer than anything barrel-aged or any stout or any IPA. So try them all. I think the innovation is in what you're wanting to try, and it's out there right now.
Yeah, going with what Joe said, my big thing as of late has been session beers, which I've just been absolutely enamored with. Something that beer-wise that I really am excited for is definitely more traditional ale, something more interesting, which is why I'm incredibly excited for Hammerheart to open up pretty soon. I know Austin's getting ready to open his doors. I've tried 5 or 6 of his pilot batches, and these beers are awesome. Really, really different styles, not easily accessible, but really cool. From a sales perspective, what I personally would like to see more of are craft gluten-free and NA beers. Actually, I feel like someone locally needs to make a really good NA beer, something that you can sell at a retail level for someone who can't drink beer anymore, but they still love the taste of it. Imagine like an NA, pale ale or IPA. And as far as the gluten-free perspective, I mean, ever since this enzyme has been discovered that removes gluten from beers that registers it under 5 parts per million, I was dumbfounded when I tried the stuff from, say, Omission or Two Brothers, like the Prairie Path and the Omission Pale and Lager. I would have been tricked to thinking that those were real beer. I feel like if someone locally started brewing good gluten-free beer or NA beer, it would just take the market by storm, and I think that's a very big chunk that's missed right now.
All right, so let's get back in more to the legal realm, and then we'll open it up to some questions. If you guys have some burning issues, think about those for a minute or two. But with the movement to save the growler, we kind of touched on that earlier, but it's looking like there's going to be some changes to what breweries are and are not allowed to do, and those volume caps on those. How do you guys see those volume changes impacting the smaller brewers in the state, like your Borealis from Henry or your Boom Island? How do you think that affects them competition-wise when those laws change?
Is this just on growlers and how? Well, it's hard to answer on some of the real small ones. I don't think, and they're in remote areas, so I don't think they're really going to be. It's going to hurt. Or I'll give you an example of Town Hall because that's what I know. When growlers first became legal, Town Hall. Well, before growlers first became legal, the people that agreed to it, to allow the legislation to change, didn't think that we would sell anything worthwhile to be selling growlers. When we started selling growlers, and I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, it's been a while ago, we were selling roughly $120,000 worth of growlers. And this is a restaurant. Over time, tap rooms were allowed to sell growlers. And with the boom on tap rooms, first of all, let me say that I'm all for selling growlers. I think any brewery with a tap room, any brewery of any size should be able to sell growlers. I think that if the demand is there, they should do it. If it doesn't break any other laws. Since the tap room opened, our growler sales have been cut in roughly half. And that's because of the competition. And there's a lot of craft brewers that are selling growlers that are people that are going to buy that. On the same note, there is people that used to frequent town hall 4 or 5 times a week. And now I see them once or twice a week. I think it's good for the industry, and I think we should be pushing for craft beer to grow. And anything that helps a craft brewer in the state of Minnesota, everyone on this panel should be pushing for a law to be changed so that that brewery can grow. I know I'm going way past growlers here. In addition to that, you're talking about a law that was changed for tap rooms that doesn't allow a brewery like New Belgium to come into our market and have a tap room because they're over 200,000 barrels. In Colorado, they have a tap room. It's fantastic. One of the best breweries in the United States, one of the best breweries in the world. And the fact that Minnesota doesn't welcome them with open arms is ridiculous. So what New Belgium is doing and what all the other breweries are, they're seeking out states that will allow that to happen. And it's hurting Minnesota, it's hurting Minnesota's breweries, and it's hurting your customers.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, I guess just one thing there too. I mean, anything that helps to grow breweries, I mean, it obviously helps to grow jobs for everybody in every tier, and also gives an opportunity for consumers to support their friends and neighbors. So, I mean, I echo Pete's sentiments there, and I think it'd be good. So.
Cool. Well, we're gonna actually cut the audience questions short because we're past our time already. So I wanted to throw one more plug out there for the stopmndrinktax.org if you guys want to take action on that excise tax. There's other states not far away. Ohio passed a law yesterday actually lowering the fee and thus the entrance barrier for craft brewers to get into the market. So we're definitely headed the wrong direction. If you guys care about beer and craft beer in your community, I would urge you to go check it out. But let's give the participants a round of applause and thank them. And I'll turn the mic back over to your host.
But just to echo Dan's statement of supporting our friends and neighbors, let's give another big round of applause and support our industry members. Without these guys, I mean, we wouldn't have had such a very thoughtful and passionate conversation. So, you guys, it truly does mean a lot. Speaking as an industry member too, I know how busy we can all be, and for you guys to be here tonight, I mean, I could listen to these guys talk for another hour. I know you guys have wives and husbands and kids at home too, so let's let you guys get back. But I just wanted each and every one of you guys to know how much it really does mean to me for you guys to be here today. Hansi, you had a couple parting thoughts too.
Hello. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm Hansi with Original Gravity. Paul Morrissey, our owner up here. Really, the reason I wanted to just get up here and say thanks to all these guys is I want to thank you guys too for being here. And as you can see, the panel has a lot of passion about what they do. And you guys have a lot of passion, and that's why you're here. You got passion about craft beer. You got passion about learning about it. And I've got a passion about working in it. And a lot of it relates to you guys. And that's why these guys are here, because we have a passion about seeing you come to our businesses, whether it's purchasing our product as a distributor or purchasing a product of Dan's or Peter's from the Town Hall Tap, or going into the ale jail or Fort Firkins and seeing, these guys are seeing Ian or following him on Twitter. But at the end of the day, I just want to say, remember that passion. And we really do. We had a theme tonight. The beginning theme was about this excise tax. And I really think you need to take that passion and take it to the street. Don't just call the governor. Don't just do that. You need to talk to your neighbors, because a lot of your neighbors are uneducated. You guys are now educated. You've seen some of it. You know what it's all about. We've got people, craft brew exposed. Rob in the back there. I don't know if you guys have ever met him, but he's here. There's people that are passionate about this and get the word out. And I just want you to know, we don't always agree on everything. We got different viewpoints on things. But at the end of the day, the one thing we do know is we do got to agree on growing craft beer in this market, whether it's through a tap room over at a production brewery or a brew pub in Peter's case, or through these specialized craft stores that, quite frankly, neither one of these two guys sells the product that keeps the light on for us or for Joe. So you can't buy a Budweiser, you can't buy a Miller Lite from Joe in either one of these two establishments. That's a lot of passion. They're leaving a lot of sales on the table because of that. But because they're focused and they've got a business plan that supports that, we also need you guys to support that. So at the end of the day, be passionate about what you do. Get on the phone. Be passionate with your neighbors, and help us grow this business. Because really, the state is ready for it, right, guys? All right. Thank you. And thanks for supporting Rob. And the biggest, I'm sorry. I'm forgetting the biggest thank you I wanted to put out there. I want to put a thank you out there for Andrew Schmidt. I tell you, I put a call out to him, and I didn't get to thank, I love that guy, I really do. And him and I differ on different issues, we definitely do. And we both know that, and we talk about that on a regular basis. We have that conversation. It's not like we can't talk to each other because we don't agree about things. It's like we talk about it. But at the end of the day, Andrew Schmidt, I made a call a few weeks ago about this tax issue. I got him on the phone, and you guys didn't get to see Joe's boss, President of JJ Taylor, who was here earlier, and their social media guy, Eddie, who was here earlier, because they are passionate about this issue too. And we got together, and I'll tell you what, the government, they talk about bipartisan issues. You know what? They don't even have a fucking clue. We do. We talk bipartisan. We know we don't agree on everything, but we figure out a way to at least get done what we can get done and work together on it. And Andrew, thank you for creating StopMNDrinkTax.com or .org. And thank you for all the work you've done on this, because you are passionate and you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys again. Cheers to you guys.